Good morning, dear learners. We are understanding the concept of language, especially as for the important basic skills of language learning. We are understanding in the previous class. We just started off understanding the concept of what is reading. Okay, what are its types? Especially we have discussed about what is silent reading and what is loud reading. Now let us move on to the next level of the same understanding of the concept, that is in pedagogy of school subject only. So today we shall study about the next sub concept of a reading skill, that is intensive reading and extensive reading. And even we will study about what is skimming and the scanning, what are the methods of teaching oral reading, and how do we develop reading and study skills among the learners, like how should we refer as well as understand the dictionary element as well as the other concept of encyclopedias. Okay, so let's see that one by one. First, let me focus on the concept of intensive reading and extensive reading. Have you heard these names? Have you heard these type of reading skills? Can anyone? What do you mean by intensive and extensive reading? These are the important types of reading. Okay, intensive reading and extensive reading. What does these means? Let us try to understand the meaning of intensive reading as well as extensive reading at the initial stage. Later, we shall discuss about the differences that we usually identify between these two terminologies, or how far these both type are important for the development of language learning is considered. Okay. First, let me move on to the sub concept of extensive reading. What is extensive reading and what is intensive reading? So the definition of extensive reading, first let me focus on that. Okay, extensive reading. It is a reading or a rapid reading of large quantities of material. So extensive reading, if you wish to understand what is the similarities, or you can say what are the differences between intensive and extensive. Don't get confused with the terminology. Extensive, extended form of reading, extensive information we used to get. Okay, it is a type of rapid reading of large quantities of material, or longer reading for general understanding. This is not my definition. This is the definition of a linguist called Carroll and Carson in their 1997 in Richards, and even Richards and Ranandia in 2002 had given what is extensive reading. So the definition runs like this. Extensive reading is a type of rapid reading, means we do read rapidly of large quantity of material. When we have large quantity of material, that time if we are following this format of reading, that is what extensive reading, where reading for general understanding is to take place. For general understanding, we do use large quantity of material. So for such reading or such type of reading is to be known as extensive form of reading or extensive reading. Whereas intensive reading is considered, it is a reading in detail with specific learning aims and tasks, which was given by Brown in the year 2007. So extensive reading is a large quantity of material or longer reading for general understanding, whereas intensive type of reading is a reading type where we do read in detail with specific purpose, with specific learning, with having some of the common aims and objectives in our mind. For achieving those aims and objectives, those specific aims and objectives only, we do have the habit of these kind of reading. Okay, so that is the difference, or that is the similarity you can say between extensive and intensive type of reading. So the purpose of extensive as well as intensive reading are like this. So the purpose of extensive reading is a lifelong reading habit. It is usually followed by most of the people, some for general understanding, some for lifelong process, and some for some people reading will become habit. So for those people, it is a lifelong reading habit. Enjoyment will be there and general reading skills will have to be followed. So for the purpose of enjoyment, For the purpose of general reading skill and for the purpose of lifelong learning, we do use extensive reading, like reading a novel, reading a magazine, reading a epic. Okay, for the purpose of enhancing the knowledge, for the purpose of enjoyment, whatever form of literature I am interested in, that source of information, that source of reading is to be collected from my side as to read it out. That is what the purpose of extensive reading. Whereas intensive reading is considered, it is a detailed meaning, developing reading skills, vocabulary and grammar knowledge. Usually these type of reading is to be followed by most of the teachers as well as the students for the purpose of examination, where reading is to be done from everyone or the one who are actually interested in reading the content for getting the meaning of what they are reading. But in extensive reading, there is no such purpose. They read for enjoyment, that's it. They will literally know, they will not literally go for word to word meaning, whereas in extensive intensive reading, they used to get meaning of every word. They used to develop reading skills, they improve their vocabulary, they improve their enhance their grammar knowledge. So these all aspects were usually seen in intensive reading. The place and time of extensive reading is out of the course. Any time you can read, while traveling in the train, while traveling in a bus, while moving from one place to another, while doing an activity, while before going to sleep, or in the morning. So there is no place, there is no restricted time for extensive type of reading. Whereas hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. I was talking about extensive reading. Extensive reading is out of the course as per time and place is considered, whereas intensive reading is definitely followed in a course of time. Like if you are preparing, if you are learning some concept of pedagogy of school subject English, we have a particular period of time for 4 months every semester. You used to study and you will prepare, you will write the examination. Like that, there is a particular period for intensive type of reading. Whereas extensive reading, at any time you can read, at any time, at any place you can read. So there will be no restrictions like that. Okay. Now, let me try to understand the basic concepts of this one, that is extensive reading and intensive reading. Yes. In that only we may come across uh, what actually these terminologies are again. So as per the differences are considered, just now I have spoken with you some of the important statements. Now let me discuss about extensive reading in as per a particular terminology is considered. So let us try to understand more information about the same skill. Extensive reading is used for what? It is used to obtain a general information, a general understanding of what? A general understanding of the subject. So extensive reading is a type of reading which is used by every one of us for what? For to obtain general understanding of a particular subject that we are actually interested in. And it includes reading of longer text for pleasure purpose as well as for the business books. Use extensive reading skill, definitely improve our general knowledge of business procedures, and do not worry if you understand if you do not understand each word also. Meanwhile, at the time of understanding extensive reading, or if you are going for extensive reading, if you are getting every word meaning also, don't worry. But that is not the purpose of extensive reading, to get every word meaning as well as information. That is not the actual meaning of extensive reading. We do read for getting or to obtain more understanding about the general subjects. That is what general you can say what is extensive reading. Some of the examples of extensive reading are the latest marketing strategy book. If you are reading the latest general marketing strategy, which is somewhat not connected to you, but still you are reading. If still you are reading, if you are getting some information to the help of that strategy book, that is what the extensive form of reading only. Extensive. extending your information, extending your knowledge through the help of getting some source of information through the help of reading ability. The other example for extensive reading is reading a novel before you going to bed, while traveling, or any time of your life, you can say. So for the purpose of pleasure, if you are reading a novel, that is also become one of the best example of extensive reading. Even you can say some of the articles in the magazines which you are interested in. If you read an article in the magazine, that will become also an example of extensive type of reading. Then what is intensive reading? Intensive reading is used on a shorter text, which includes very close, accurate reading for detail. So, as comparing to extensive type of reading, we may come across intensive reading as very short form of information, or you can say specific form of information, where we may get close connection about what we are all going to read, that is in detail. So use intensive reading skills to grasp the details of specific situation. We do use intensive reading for getting some specific information. In this case, it is important that you need to understand each word, number, whatever you are going to come across, because it is very short form of information. Okay. The example for intensive reading are a bookkeeping report, that how the students used to prepare. Today, the students of SSLC are writing MCQ examination for the first time in Karnataka because of the pandemic situation. They are the best example for intensive reading. They have read those context for the purpose, and they are going to write bookkeeping report. An insurance claim. If you sign an insurance, there are some conditions which you need to read. Okay, or it may be a contract. Okay, if you are giving your home for a lease or a rent purpose, or if it is a contract between a company, so there may be a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between two companies, two organizations, two institutions. So that type of contract is to be known as the best example for intensive reading. We need to read it specifically. So some slight differences if you try to see between extensive and intensive reading. Extensive reading is a long text, or it may be a long book which is in detail as far its meaning and etymological aspects are considered. Okay, it is long text, whereas intensive reading is of short text. Okay, it is short as far its nature or its scope is considered. It is in very short form, whereas extensive reading is in a long form of book. Extensive reading helps the students to develop reading fluency. If you allow your learner to improve extensive reading aspects, definitely that will help the students to develop their reading in a fluent form. If you wish to make your learner to be very fluent, then what you need to do is you should have to give some extensive form of reading abilities. Whereas intensive reading helps the students to develop reading skills, vocabulary, and even grammar knowledge. With the help of intensive reading, students will get more information about the grammar, more information about the vocabulary, and even the more information as well as the other criteria of the content which is being taught by the teacher. Next is there is a general understanding in general extensive reading, whereas in intensive reading, a detailed meaning from the text is to be followed. General understanding is possible in extensive reading, whereas in intensive reading, you can see detailed meaning of the same context. In extensive reading, what is being read is important, whereas intensive reading, linguistic components, what is the word, what is the root word, what is the meaning of that word, how it stands in the vocabulary formation, word, sentence, phrase, or maybe in the background of grammar. So linguistic approach, a linguistic component it is to be called as, whereas extensive reading is what is being read. So these are some of the differences we can see in the concept of intensive reading and extensive reading. So these are some of the images of books, magazines, periodicals, newspapers. So any form of information you can give, that can be done, that can be followed by these kind of situations. Next, yes. Now, the role of the teacher in extensive and intensive reading. Okay, that is what we need to understand. what will be the role of a teacher? So in extensive reading, the teacher will act as a promoter. Promoters, builders ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ನೋಡಿ. Promoters means who promote, who give the advertisement, who create an awareness. Okay, like that, the teacher should have to give awareness about the importance of extensive reading. So here the teacher will work as a promoter, whereas in intensive reading ability, teacher will become the main organizer of the reading ability. So in extensive reading, teacher's role is as a promoter, whereas in intensive reading, the teacher acts as an organizer of the whole event. Next, in extensive reading, teacher persuades students, whereas in intensive reading, he will only an observer, how they behave, everything is to be observed by the teacher in intensive reading. In extensive reading, sometime in a critical condition, the teacher need to play the role of an organizer, whereas here at the same time he is already working as an organizer. At the same time, he may give feedback to the learners developments, especially for reading abilities. Consider intensive reading ability. If there are any mistakes, those mistakes are to be given in the form of feedback as to improve. So feedback organizer role need to be played by the teacher in intensive type of reading. Next is teacher in extensive reading. Teacher monitors students reading. Here teacher usually monitors how students are reading, whereas in intensive reading, teacher will prompt, okay, how students performing. Okay, if there are any intensities, if there are any aspects which are supposed to be done, those things are to be followed by the teacher in this type of reading. So that is what how role of the teacher is to be followed in the form of intensive and extensive type of reading. Now let me move on to the next sub concept that is the same reading skill, that is skimming and scanning. I think these are the some of the confusing words for the students of language. What is skimming, what is scanning? Every now and then we used to get some type of questions from these words. There may be the chances of asking some questions in TET and CTET regarding what is skimming and what is scanning. Okay, skimming and scanning. What is skimming? Skimming is used to quickly gather the most important information out of the available systems. Skimming. So we have to gather quickly the most important information, or a gist you can say. So if you are receiving a gist from whole page, if there is one page information, so it is out of one page. If you wish to use a type of reading to get quickly to gather most important information or a gist, that is known as skimming. Run your eyes, so you will just have a close contact with your eyes with the form of reading. Run your eyes over the text, noting important information. You will see out of one page there are 3 important statements which are very, very important, like that. If you pick those statements out of all information, like 100 words, 200 words, 500 words, we will pick only few important words or sentences. That is what skimming. So skimming is used to quickly gather the most important information or a gist from the information. Okay, use skimming to quickly get up to speed on a current business situation. It is not essential to understand each word in when you are going for skimming. It is not necessary for every one of us to understand every word meaning, but we do use skimming to get quick information, most important information about out of all the information which is available. That is what skimming is. So the example for skimming are, okay, the newspaper reading. Every day we start reading newspaper. So if it may be 12 pages, 16 pages, 20 pages, but we do not read word to word. We do reading in the form of skimming, which is out of first page. What is very important, like that we used to think, and whatever is important for me, for somebody it may not be an important issue, but the one who is doing skimming, according to his perception or her perception, whatever is important according to their perception, that is what will become a skimming part of reading ability. So the newspaper, quickly to get general news. If I am very If I am interested only in sports, I will go to the sports column. If I am very much interested in national news, I will go to that. If I am very much interested about films, I will go to that page only. If I am interested in local news, I will go to that direct page instead of reading every word. Okay, skimming. Magazines, quickly to discover which articles you would like to read in the magazine. Okay, business and travel brochures are the best examples. When you used to see travel brochure, there are travel plans like Kanyakumari, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Delhi, Agra, out of state, Malaysia, like out of the country. But in which you are interested, that brochure only will select. That is what skimming. Okay, that is it. Next is scanning. What is scanning then? Scanning, we usually hear this word or we do use this word for taking a copy of the same through the help of some technical instrument, Xerox or other things in scan. Before Xeroxing, that should have been scanned. In which sense scanning is used in reading ability? Is it same? No. Scanning is used in language to find a particular piece of information. Scanning. Okay. It is used to find a particular piece of information, not all. Run your eyes over the text looking for a specific piece of information. You need only that information you will pick. Okay, that is scanning. Use scanning on a schedules, meeting plans, etc. in order to find the specific details you require. If you see words or phrases that you don't understand, don't worry when scanning is going. So if suppose if I'm talking about a particular word, you will only focus scanning in this slide, in this particular page, you will only focus on what is scanning. Scanning is used to find a particular piece of information. That much only. That is what scanning, instead of reading other statements. Okay. Hope you understood. Scanning is used to find a particular piece of information. Out of these 6 to 7 statements, I will only pick only one sentence. What is scanning? So that is what the best example of scanning. So examples of scanning are the what's on TV section. So instead of going to every TV, I will select such TV or a program which is interested. Okay, a train or aeroplane schedules when I am traveling, a conference guide when I am there in the conference. So piece of information, specific piece of information is to be known as scanning. Now, these are some of the aspects of intensive reading, extensive reading, as well as skimming and scanning. Now, that will be the end of the today's first session. Okay, thank you so much.